Welcome. We are deliberating initiation steps for teaching and learning of Vedic mathematics as a mainstream discipline. We had seen that the first letter of the text of Ganita Sutras is the sixth vowel, and as such, we had deliberated that the initiation, the first step, the initial step of teaching and learning of Vedic mathematics as a mainstream discipline is to be in terms of the values reservoir of the sixth vowel, six-space domain, a self-referral domain, a domain of the format of hypercube 6 and of the reach of the sun as a six-space body. Today, a step ahead, we are face to face with the second letter of the text being the first Varga consonant Ka. Therefore, in continuity of our initiation in terms of the reservoir values domain of six space, we have to have transition, we have to transit, and we have to reach from the reservoir of six space to the reservoir of four space as the enlightenment of the Vedic systems is that Ka is the reservoir of the creator of the space. Ka, Brahma, is the initiation of the reach of the second letter. Therefore, for this initiation, today we shall be taking 10 phases of reach. The first is the first pair of letters, then a second phase, Ka Brahma and Ka Shiv, then the placement of letter Ka as 10th placement after 9 vowels. Fourth step is that Ka Brahma leads us to TC value 4. Fifth is that there is a 10 directional frame for flow of a Jyoti from the orb of the sun. This takes to TC value 12 format as self-referral domain, six-space domain is formatted within a transcendental boundary of 12 components. As the transcendental boundary is of a solid order, as such, 3 space in the role of a dimension will sequentially take us to value 3, 33, and 333. At the fourth step, when there will be a transition from the initial 3 steps to the fourth steps, it would be a reach from linear order 3 space to the spatial order 4 space, and as such, it will take us to the creative boundary of the transcendental domain, which is of 10 components. So the 8th phase and stage of chase here is going to be of value 3330. The 9th phase and stage is to have appreciation of the formulation Trimurti, and the last phase of reach here today in this present session of deliberation is split and synthesis of the transcendental domain. Let us revisit the text, and we will be face to face with that the first letter of the text of the Ganita Sutras, The first Ganita Sutra, Ekadikein Purve, is A, the sixth vowel, and the second letter of the text of Ganita Sutra 1 is Ka, the first Varga consonant. Sixth vowel is a value format of 6, 6 space, hypercube 6, 6 space content, 6 space format, 6 value as the first perfect number. And this way we see that whole range of reservoir of values of 6 or 6 space come into play. The second letter is Ka. It is of the 10th placement, and it is this placement of Ka which will help us appreciate the interrelationship of the first letter and the second letter. It would going to be the interrelationship and coordination of pair of values 6 and 4, and it is this interrelationship of values of first letter and the second letter which will also bring us face to face with the way the Vedic mathematical domain stands stitched, organized. It is this stitching organization of the text of Ganita Sutras of Vedic mathematical domain which is to provide us the proper initiation for entering the Vedic mathematical domain. We know the formulation sutra as simple rendering leads us to its meanings as a thread, a stitching thread. There are sutras, there are 16 sutras. So Vedic mathematical domain stands as stitched as 16 sutras, and stitching these sutras. So we have to be parallel with the stitching of these texts, these domains. The initiation for being parallel with the stitching of the mathematical domain is to be parallel to the availability of the letters of the text. The first letter of the text is A, the sixth vowel, and the second letter of the text is Ka. We know that A as the sixth vowel leads us to value 6, and Ka as Ka Brahma leads us to value 4, as Lord Brahma is the presiding deity of real 4 space. This way we can see that this coordination, this stitching in terms of first and second letter takes us to 6 space at phase and stage of the first letter and to 4 space at the phase and stage of the second letter. Therefore, this stitching, this coordination, this organization, this progression in terms of values of pairs 6 and 4 of formats 6 space and 4 space brings us face to face with that 6 space as 6 space domain is accepting 4 space in the role of a dimension. Therefore, the coordination, the stitching, the organization of the mathematical domain in terms of the values pair 6 and 4 and in terms of the geometric format of 6 space and 4 space brings us face to face with the self-referral domain. 6 space as domain at next step is taking us to 4 space in the role of a dimension. Therefore, the feature which comes to the pointed attention here as a feature of organization of the text of Ganita Sutra 1, and as such, as the text of the Ganita Sutras is that this organization is going to be of six space as a domain, and then the six space as a domain takes us to four space in the role of the dimension of a six space. Now, here we see value wise, there is a jump from 6 to 4, and there is a jump over value 5. However, the format wise, it is in continuity as it is taking from 6 space as a domain to 4 space as its dimension. Therefore, a reach from domain to dimensional frame is a continuous geometric coordination format. Without value-wise, there emerges a gap, and as there is a jump over value 5. Therefore, we have to have a proper appreciation of this mathematical domain. The scriptures, the Vedic systems well preserve that Ka as Brahma and also Ka as a Shiv, as Lord Brahma, creator the supreme, meditates within cavity of his own heart at the seat of the transcendental Lord, and with the grace of the transcendental Lord, Lord Brahma multiplies as 10 Brahmas. It is this inherent feature of the geometric formats compactification that the jump from value 6 to value 4 remains no more a gem, as there happens to be a geometric continuity. It is the continuity because of the inherent feature of compactification of geometric formats that the arithmetic of the artifices of values of numbers, which as discretes value 6 and discrete value 4 brings into a gap. However, when the chase is along the geometric format, then the gaps in fact remains no more a gap. The gap stands bridged. There is a continuity of the geometric format. It is this feature of maintaining, retaining, attaining, ascertaining, ensuring continuity by bridging the gaps of the discrete values is the feature which is to be properly imbibed. As such, the sadhakas fulfilled with the intensity of urge to be parallel with Vedic mathematics, to be parallel with Vedic systems, shall sit comfortably and be parallel with the enlightenment phenomenon, the enlightenment path of the Creator, Lord Brahma Himself, as that the intelligence, as an intelligence field created by the brain within the head as organ of human frame, is so placed and so potentialized that the coordination of the human frame as Shad Chakra formates is full of potentialities that in terms of and along this enlightenment path, Lord Brahma multiplies as 10 Brahmas with the grace of the transcendental Lord, and with it the role of four space as domain transits and transforms into the role of a fourth space as a creative boundary of 10 components. It is this feature which deserves to be comprehended well. It is the proper comprehension and the appropriate imbibing one will be in a position to have appreciation as to the initiation for learning and teaching of Vedic mathematics in terms of the sequential placement of the letters will help us ensure continuity of progression. Now, here we may further have a fresh visit to the placement of the letters in Devanagari alphabet. The organization of Devanagari alphabet is that as a first step, there is an organization of 9 vowels in sequential placements parallel to the values 1 to 9. And immediately thereafter, there is a placement of the Varga consonants, and the first Varga consonant is Ka. So the first Varga consonant Ka gets 10th placement. It is this feature of placement of the letters in continuity as a single integrated domain of whole range of 50 letters of the Devanagari alphabet, we will be in a position to have proper appreciation as to the transition and transformation of Lord Brahma with the grace of Transcendental Lord Shiv as 10 Brahmas. It is this transition, it is this transformation of Brahma as 10 Brahmas in a Shivlok in 5 space, which is parallel to the placement of letter Ka at 10th placement in Devanagari alphabet. The 10th placement of letter Ka and the enlightenment feature, the transcendental feature of transition and transformation for Brahma from the role of creative domain to the role of creative boundary of 10 components is the inherent feature of the Vedic systems which deserves to be comprehended well, and it is with its comprehension we will be having a satisfaction of proper progression of learning and teaching of Vedic mathematics of Ganita Sutras parallel to the organization of the composition of the text of the Ganita Sutras. Therefore, a reach from first letter, sixth vowel to the second letter Ka as Ka Brahma with the inherent potentiality of Ka Shiv will help us appreciate as that the reach from value 6 to value 4 with the summation value of 10 is parallel to the first letter 6 being a structural key value for Ganita Sutra 1, and the second letter together with the first letter becomes and plays the role of the structural key of Ganita Sutra 2, the Nikhilim Navastacharmam Dashata, the first pair of letters of Ganita Sutra 1 as of value 6 and 4 of summation value 10 is parallel to the TCV values pair 8 and 2 of the first pair of letters of the second sutra. It is this feature which will further help us appreciate that the initiation of learning and teaching in terms of the sequential availability of the letters will inherently provide us a progression, not only as a progression of the mathematical domain of Ganita Sutra 1, but simultaneously this chase format will inherently take us to the progression format for Sutra 2 as well. Now we can see that the Sutra 1 with its first pair of letters as of TC values pairs 6 and 4 when is appreciated in the light of the first pair of letters of the text of Ganita Sutras 2 as of the TC values pair 8 and 2, it will bring us face to face with that the first letter of Ganita Sutra 1 as value 6 and second letter and the first letter of Ganita Sutra 2 as of value 8 appears apparently of the features that 6 space as domain is reaching to 8 space as a domain. So 6 space in the role of a dimension is structuring 8 space as a domain. While here a reach from 6 space to 4 space has been a reach from 6 space as a domain to 4 space as dimension. However, transition from Sutra 1 to Sutra 2 is of the format that 6 space as a domain is taking us to 8 space as a domain. Now, see 2 space as dimension will take us to 4 space as a domain. Now 4 space as a domain will take us to 6 space as a domain. And now 6 space as a domain as a dimension will take us to 8 space as a domain. So it is this interstructural coordination inherent in the organization of the text of Ganita Sutras, parallel to which is the organization of the mathematical domain of Ganita Sutras. Therefore, sadhakas fulfilled with intensity of urge to be parallel with the Vedic mathematics shall be parallel with the sequential organization features of the text of Ganita Sutras. Ganita Sutra 1 with its first letter as of value 6 and second letter as of value 4 will provide us a reach from 6 space as a domain to 4 space as a dimension. However, the reach from Sutra 1 to Sutra 2 will take first letter of value 6 as a dimension, taking us to value 8 as an 8 space as a domain. It is this inter coordination organization features setup which is to be imbibed fully, and it is only by imbibing these inherent organization features that one shall be parallel with the Vedic mathematical domain. Let us have a pause here. to have a full appreciation of the way the word formulations in fact are of Vedic mathematical formats. Pointedly, the first pair of letters of the text of Ganita Sutra 1 as of values of pair 6 and 4 lead us to summation value 10. Now see this summation value 4 plus 6 is parallel to the TC values of the pair of syllables of the formulation Rath, a chariot. Now the Rath is a composition of a pair of syllables of TC values 4 and 6 parallel to the TC values of the first pair of letters of Ganita Sutra 1. Now see, Rath is a formulation of TC value 10. And when we say thus Rath means 10 chariots, then see the formulation thus as well is of TC value 10. Therefore, while these formulations individually bring us face to face with the values which on comparison will sequentially take to the parallel formulations. Therefore, the way we have to reach at their applied formats, we have to be parallel with their TCV values. So TCV values of the letters leading to TC values of the word formulations will help us appreciate that when we say there are 10 directions, means disha, and when we be face to face with the formulation disha itself, it leads to TC value 12. And see the TC value 12 in the background of TC value 10 becomes 2 plus 4 plus 6. Now see, disha means a direction. Now here we have a 10 directional frame within 3 space. So naturally the hint would be required. Hint is to be inbuilt in the system. So we will, when we'll say the disha is a TC value 12, it would mean with the 10 as a dimension, we have to reach at 12 as a domain. And further we know that a raised to power 5 is to 10 b raised to power 4 is the reach of a Brahma as 10 Brahmas. And step ahead, there is going to be a reach from 10 Brahmas to the Dwadas Adityas, Dwadas Jyotir Lingam. Now, this inherent, inbuilt mathematical features, values as words formulations is the way the Vedic systems are preserving not only the formulations but as precise formulae to have a reach from the formulations to formulae is a learning process. So our learning and teaching of Vedic mathematics in terms of and parallel to the organization of the text of Ganita Sutras themselves is a guided, completely regulated, fully mathematized system, and the learning and teaching of Vedic mathematics in itself is the mathematics, and this learning and teaching of mathematics as mathematics is the cause and is the reason why Vedic mathematics of Ganita Sutras deserves to be approached as a mainstream discipline. Mainstream discipline for the young minds is a perfect discipline, the discipline which is parallel to the format of the intelligence field evolved with time by the brain. Therefore, the young mind is to grow, is to mature parallel to the way the intelligence field grows, matures, and perfects. The perfection of intelligence and perfection of learning of Vedic mathematics have to run parallel to each other. Therefore, the learning and teaching of Vedic mathematics of Ganita Sutras parallel to the organization of the text of Ganita Sutras is of inherent potentialities, and these inherent potentialities are to be fully exploited. The proper learning and teaching of Vedic mathematics as a mainstream of discipline for its full potentialities of the order of the solar universe will be available for the young minds only if the young minds have been put upon learning and teaching format parallel to the inherent inbuilt organizational features of the text of Ganita Sutras. See, the value 12 is a powerful value as much as that value 12 is parallel to the transcendental boundary of self-referral domain being of 12 components. It is formulation yog, which also is of TC value 12, and the formulation rishi as well is of value 12. There are 12 transcendental boundary components of self-referral domain. A raised to power 6 is to 12, B raised to power 5 is the formulation of six space body within creators of space. When we'll proceed a step ahead from second letter to the third letter, or then we will be face to face with the first letter of value 6, second letter of value 4, and third letter of value 2 together making value 12. Therefore, the sequential organization is of such features which inherently go on unfolding parallel to the way one is to approach the existence phenomenon of our solar universe. With it, when we see that the first three letters are taking us to value 12, then we shall have a pause here before we transit from second letter to the third letter. The third letter initially brings in value 3. This value 3 is parallel to three-dimensional frame. Then we know that a three-dimensional frame is a synthetic setup of a pair of three-dimensional frames of half dimensions. It is this synthetic setup of a three-dimensional frame as a pair of three-dimensional frames of half dimensions which will permit full expression in terms of artifices of numbers with the value 3, the digit 3 being availed for its both placements. One shall sit comfortably and be parallel with three-dimensional frame of complete dimensions, full dimensions as artifice 3 of number value 3. but a step ahead when three-dimensional frame is approached for its organization within a spatial order creates the space, then we will be face to face with the feature that three-dimensional frame is a synthetic setup of a pair of three-dimensional frames of half dimensions. It is this split it is this split of a three-dimensional frame into a pair of three-dimensional frames of half dimensions will amount to the transcendence of the origin. The transcendence of the origin from a three-dimensional frame, and as a result thereof, the split of three-dimensional frame as a pair of three-dimensional frames of half dimensions will bring in a 10 place value format. So 4 space in the role of an origin of a 3 space, the transcendence of 4 space as origin from 3 space domain will amount to the split of a 3-dimensional frame into a pair of 3-dimensional frames. Now a step ahead, when we will be having a split for 3 as a pair of threes, when a three-dimensional frame will split into a pair of three-dimensional frames, then the origin transcendence will provide an inherent format, and this inherent format will be of the form of a gap. It is a gap in between the placements of discrete pair of points. The gap between the discretes is the gap which will avoid continuity unless and until gap itself is also fulfilled with the another discrete value. It will take us to 333. Now let us have a pause. We know we have a 9 vowels range. We have 9-dimensional frames. Let us go to the last, the ninth. The ninth vowel O will, as display of 9 discrete points, will lead to 8 gaps. Now formulation RUS is having TC value 8. So O as of TC value 9 together with RUS as of TC value 8 parallel to the 8 gaps of the 9 discrete points will provide us a formulation ORUS, and the transcendence of this formulation at its triple vowels O, and O will lead us to value 333. It is this feature, it is this value which deserves to be comprehended when sadhakas fulfilled with intensity of urge to be parallel with the Vedic mathematical systems of Ganita Sutras and to be parallel with the mathematical domain of Vedas and to be parallel with the existence phenomenon of our solar universe shall be face to face with the way the dimensional frames stand synthesized and the way dimensional frames split. It is this split and synthesis of the dimensional frame which will bring us face to face with the way these systems are organizing themselves and are progressing with their inner folds. We see that the Trimurti, which sustains this Triloki, our 3 space domains sustained by Trimurti, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiv, and Lord Vishnu. Lord Brahma is the overlord of 4 space, Lord Shiv is the overlord of 5 space, Lord Vishnu is the overlord of 6 space. Now these values 6, 5 and 4 for its triple placements will as such make six setups, and these six setups as values, when are summed up, these lead us to value 3330. We know this value is 10 times 333. So it takes us to the format of creative boundary of 10 components now of a transcendental domain. So 5 space is a solid order space. 3 space is a linear order space. Now this organization of our Akash Tattva as a fifth element and the transcendence of a Jyoti from orb of the sun into our Akash will permit its chase in terms of 3330 reservoirs. These reservoirs are available while we will be having a sequential chase along the format of composition of Ganita Sutra 1. The first three letters, 6, 4, and 2, at the next fourth step will be of value 7, and we know 7 space is playing the role of an origin of a 6 space. So the entry will be at the origin. So having a reach at the origin of the domain is the phenomenon which is being fully chased by the Vedic mathematical domain of Ganita Sutras, as this domain is to become and is in fact parallel to the solar universe of sun, a 6 space body with 7 space in the role of its origin, and Jyoti is to flow from orb of the sun, and the same is to transcend within our Akash. Therefore, the sadhakas fulfilled with intensity efforts to be parallel with the processing, unfolding systems of Ganita Sutras shall learn to initiate foreign entry within the Vedic mathematical domain, as is the formatted composition of the text of the Ganita Sutras. This, as such, will be a reach of the organization format of a Trimurti, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiv, and Lord Vishnu. Lord Brahma is the overlord of a 4 space with hypercube 4 as its representative regular body. Lord Shiv is the transcendental lord, presiding deity of a 5 space with hypercube 5 as its representative regular body of manifested format within creators of space. Step ahead, Lord Vishnu is the self-referral Lord. Lord Vishnu is the overlord of real 6 space. Hypercube 6 is the representative regular body of a 4 space as a fourfold manifestation layer within creators of space. Now, it is this organization format which will ultimately take us to the phenomenon of the transcendental domain, 5 space, which is of a solid order, splitting and synthesizing within creators of space. This split and synthesis phenomenon of a transcendental domain within creators of space is the phenomenon which manifests as fire god, the third element, the Agni Tattva. It is the Agni Tattva whose split and whose synthesis as a solid dimensional order of the transcendental domain deserves to be chased. In fact, the Vedic mathematics of Ganita Sutras to be parallel with the solar universe is potentializing itself parallel with the split and synthesis of a transcendental domain within creator's space at its dimensional solid order, which is formatting parallel to the Agni Tattva, the fire god, the third element, which splits into a pair of domains. It is this split of a fire element, the fire god, to be of the format of a pair of heads of pair and triple as two and three tongues in each mouth is the phenomenon which deserves to be comprehended well. One shall sit comfortably and permit the transcendent mind to be parallel with the sequential letters being availed for the composition of the text of the Ganita Sutras, beginning with Ganita Sutra 1, by having sequential chase, by having sequential initiation, initially with the first letter to be followed by the second letter, and at the next step to have a reach at the third letter. It is the initiation path. It is the initiation path parallel to the organization format of the text of Ganita Sutras. Thank you very much.